All right, time to welcome you into another edition of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. I'm Jeff Goodman. He is Bob Ryan. And listen, we got a lot to talk about with your boy Kyrie Irving. He is back, Bob. Are you excited?
Well, I'm excited to see how this thing's going to work out, and he is an exciting player to watch. If you could divorce, it's hard with him, though. He's become one of those personalities in sport that you just can't look at as an athlete that you're looking at in the game. He carries all this, dare we say, baggage, this extra stuff. It's almost like a fictional character or a movie role that is attached to him now. He's set himself apart from the norm, and it's just hard to look at him in the normal way. I mean, there's so much to pull out of that game, last night. I would even start with the idea that he played a career-high 48 minutes coming off the second game.
Yeah, what's Steve Nash doing there? What's Steve Nash? Why are you playing him so many minutes in his first game back? I guess listen, I'm sure he was staying in shape at least to some degree.
That amazes me. The minutes, of course, it was a double overtime game. Somebody's got to play the minutes. But the fact is he played 48, and it was a career high, as it turns out. Durant played 50. Harden played 51. That's what happens when you go double overtime. But the fact that he played 48 is significant. Let's just talk about him before. His press conference the day before was classically Kyrie, and that it had you scratching your head at times. You're wondering, and I'll tell you one thing. You talked about I needed a pause. All right, fine. He brought me up a little short, and he alluded to mental health.
Yep.
Anytime you get involved in that, I get a little. All right, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Of course.
Now you know what I've been saying about him. The three things I've been saying: A, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. B, every time he's not. This won't be his last stop. And when he leaves, they'll say, boy, we couldn't figure that guy out. And number three, and this is where, I may be overreaching my bounds since I'm not a licensed psychologist, that I think he's searching for something in life and doesn't know what it is. Now, I can be right about that. And yet when he alludes to mental health, we've had prominent players make public references, Kevin Love,
sure.
DeMar DeRozan, etc. And you should respect it. And I said, all right, if this is really, what he's alluding to as part of what his situation is, I want to have respect for it, and and cut him some slack, if you will.
The problem with Kyrie, honestly, the problem I have with Kyrie is through so many interactions that I've seen, not just with myself, but with other media members, the condescending part is the part that really bothers me, Bob. When you don't have to be condescending, and he's done it over and over. So he's dug himself this hole where, again, if it is mental health, hey, all the best to Kyrie Irving. I hope you're healthy. I hope your family's healthy, all of that. But just treat people with more respect. And if you do that, like people act like we're piling on Kyrie for no reason here.
Oh.
And people say it all the time about us, like you're biased. I'm not biased against anybody. I form an opinion based on the information and the interactions that we have with people, right? Like I've had enough of those with Kyrie to form an opinion of him that honestly, on many days, I'm not a fan of his. On many days I am, and I think that's part of the problem with Kyrie, and I've said this over and over. The one word that came up over and over and over, talking to teammates and coaches, is moody with Kyrie. And nobody ever knew what they were going to get from him. And I think even Kevin Durant's starting to see that now. The biggest thing I had with this whole Nets deal was just communicate. Because, like, Steve Nash had no idea.
Now, so that's just completely irresponsible and disrespectful.
You're not 17.
There is no defense for that aspect.
Right.
So he makes it hard. See, he makes it hard. Then he turns around and we find out we knew he was charitable, but if all the list of stuff that we're being told that he has done is all true, hallelujah, my hat's off to you. It's not just buying a house for George Floyd. He's got about 5-6 other great things he's apparently done.
And WNBA contracts, and I mean give him credit. Give Kyrie credit for that. He deserves it.
But then he turns around and does stuff that makes it hard.
Well, you know what, too? Bob, you now, okay, so we haven't even gotten to it yet. They get James Harden since we've done this podcast the last time. And now you've got these three guys that are all lightning rods as individuals, right? Like I've known all of them since they were young. I don't pretend to know James Harden that well, but he's kind of aloof, a little bit different, kind of like Kyrie in certain ways, right? Like polarizing. Absolutely. All three of them. Like Kevin Durant has become polarizing because of everything, him going to Golden State and then him going to Brooklyn. So you just wonder, again, number one, you wonder about them on the court, that there's only one basketball for three guys that want to score the basketball. That's what they do, all three of them at the highest level. That's number one. Number two is, can they coexist, on and off the court, like with their egos, their personalities? Are they reliable, all of them? And then number three, and we can go in order if you want, is can they guard it at a high enough level to win a title, to beat LeBron and Anthony Davis, who, oh, by the way, do guard at a high level? Like James Harden is a joke defensively. Kyrie's a joke defensively for the most part. Kevin Durant, when he wants to be, can be clear, like close to elite. But I worry about him for those three factors, and I just don't know if they're going to line up. Like, does anybody really think they can beat the Lakers?
Well, when we start off giving up 147, or looking at the other way, we scored 142 and it wasn't enough. I guess it was double overtime, and the scoring is way up this year, and I love to talk about that. But the fact is, I think that's going to be the technical issue that's going to prevent them from winning, unless they're going to make some commitment to it. As far as the basketball sharing is, I would like to know, and I didn't, you could look it up. I didn't have time, when's the last time James Harden only took 14 shots in a game?
I think he's proven a point before. I kind of remember him proving, I feel like in the first quarter, that's all he was doing, was proving, I don't need to score. I can be the facilitator. I don't need to be the guy. Well, like, that's easy to do for one quarter, James.
Well, as it turns out, Irving took 28 shots. Durant took 25, and he took 14. And he had 12 assists. So he's able to, for one day, given I told you so to all of us that wondered about this, it's one snapshot evening in the NBA, and we don't know how much, if he's going to be content to keep doing this. See me in a month.
One snapshot. Hey, Bob, one snapshot in which they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right, and in which Colin Sexton went off for 42 points, yeah. Right. And I guess a number of tremendous baskets. Okay, yeah, right. So it's the jumping off point. It was fascinating. It was fun. Another little, I'm a box score connoisseur. Yeah. I love box scores. Cavaliers played 8 guys. 7 were in doubles, and Okoro missed by 1 basket.
Did he?
They could have had 8, and that is very rare. 8 out of 8 would have been a box score keeper for me for all time. To see that of only 8 guys, they all had dubs, and they won. 1 more basket, 2 more free throws, and we would have had my dream box score.
So if I'm asking you to project in the Eastern Conference Finals, are we going to see a Milwaukee Bucks, Brooklyn Nets Eastern Conference Finals, Bob?
It's logical. I mean, who's the next one up to stop them? We have no idea how the Celtics are going to pan out, depending on when they get everybody back together, or if the other thing is the X factor. We're sitting here. It's just past midpoint in January. We have a lot of unknown, a very perilous point in the COVID situation as the post-Christmas travel stuff, starts to hit people. We're ready for the nightly postponement game.
Yeah, every night.
So we don't know who's going to be healthy when, what's going to happen. If we knew everybody's going to have their people.
But this has been, this is no surprise for anybody who's followed college basketball. Oh. When you don't put things in a bubble, I mean, whether you're watching, again, NFL, whatever it is, it's so much about, I don't want to say luck, but it is a little bit of luck and timing. It is everything right now, right? I mean, the Knicks play the Celtics the other night without Jason Tatum, Kemba, his first game back, and look at what happened. So, I think, again, the Celtics, to me, I think have a chance to be number 3 and maybe even number 2. Listen, I mean, again, I like the Bucks. Obviously, with Drew Holiday, I think they're better. But if you give me a healthy Kemba with this Jaylen Brown,
Yeah.
and Jason Tatum being what I think Jason Tatum is, okay, like then you got a chance. You got Tristan Thompson. I don't know. I think they can beat the Bucks. I just, this Brooklyn team is just fascinating to me, whether they're going to be able to put it all together and just kind of flip the switch and turn it on when they want and go get buckets when they want. And maybe they'll defend it at a high enough level where they can roll through the East. I mean, listen, again, you're putting 3 of – if you're doing a draft, talent-wise, Bob, you're taking KD, I don't know, top 3.
Yeah.
You're taking Harden top 5 or 6, and you're taking Kyrie top 10 or 12, talent-wise.
Yes. Oh, no, it's a formidable group. I mean, and the numbers they put up were tremendous. It wasn't enough, as it turns out, and that it comes back to the defensive thing. Once again, you don't want to overrate anything out of one night, but I think that it's clear that based on who they are and their track record, that the defense is going to be the issue. And when they get, I think they can get out of the East playing the way they want to play. Yes, they could, but if they don't dedicate themselves to defense, but the buck will stop eventually if they're playing the Lakers.
You wonder how Steve Nash is going to handle this whole thing too.
Well, I said I think that even though he's a rookie coach, a first-year coach, he's not a rookie NBA person, right. And he is a person that has enormous respect. And I just think he.
Do they respect him? Do those 3? Do you think they respect him enough? Like you heard the rumors come out about Kyrie.
I can't speak for them, but I'd like to think that there shouldn't be any issue there in that regard.
I mean, Kyrie didn't want him, right? That's what we heard. We heard Kyrie didn't want him as the head coach. I don't know if that's true or not, but that kind of came out. To me, again, like I feel like, yes, there's a level of respect there. But ultimately, if Steve Nash, is he making calls? Is he saying run this play? And is Kyrie or Harden or Kevin Durant, are any of them even listening to him? Or is it just, hey, we're going to run what we want to run? Like, this is our team. This is our stuff. We're doing what we want.
No, we'll presumably, or like hopefully we'll figure this out over time. But the clock, it started ticking last night. That's the first time we saw them together, and we saw a lot of what we expected, and the numbers are the tremendous numbers. I mean, but they didn't win, did they? No,
they did not. They did not.
And certainly, and Cleveland certainly wouldn't have been the first high on the list of teams you would have figured it would be the one to upend them in this circumstance, right? No, you wouldn't. So whatever that means, I don't know whether they're better than we thought or whether this is just who the Nets are going to be defensively.
Who's been polarizing and has been great so far this year is Joel Embiid.
No,
I think right now you'd have to have him somewhere in the MVP conversation. Philly's been good with Doc, 10-5. They've been without Seth Curry the last couple of games here, but Embiid's played the majority of their games, and he's been tremendous. I mean, think about this. He's shooting 55% from the field, Bob, which is what he always should have been shooting. Not shooting quite as many threes, 84% from the line, averaging over 26 a game right now. And Ben Simmons, his scoring has dropped because of it. He's only averaging 12 points a game, but Ben, like, he does everything else, right? He rebounds. He's averaging about 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Is this a team that maybe we're sleeping on a little bit because of Brooklyn now? Because everybody still likes Milwaukee and Giannis, and the Celtics because of Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I feel like Philly's just kind of chugging along with a new coach, a new system. They're invigorated, and they've got a team that is well put together with some shooters, at least, instead of Al Horford and Tobias and Embiid and Simmons that just didn't fit.
Well, you have to appreciate management for assembling, going out and identifying a lack, a need, and addressing it. You mentioned Steph Curry. he, not Big Brother, is leading the league in three-point percentage, hovering around 60%.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, when I saw that, I stumbled upon that in passing one day last week, Jeff. I was looking at, and
Amazing.
the day they ran the stats, in the paper, we run them once a week maybe. And I said, what? Curry set 59% 3-point?
Right.
I knew, no, they're dangerous. I like the word. That's the word I like to use. They're a dangerous team. You don't sleep on them. They're a dangerous team. And Embiid, we talk about the phrase that's crept into sports and all sports, but particularly basketball, skill set. He's always had the skill set. But we just wanted him to get focused. And by the way, thank Pat Riley for introducing that word. That's Pat Riley's word. He introduced it 30 years ago into the discussion.
Focus.
Hidden agenda, Pat Riley. I just want to tell you this. He put the word focus in a way and emphasize. Joe Embiid, forget about social media, forget about commercials, play basketball, son. And
he's so talented.
He can play this game.
he is just so talented and like fun because you know what? Like a lot of these guys worry about what they say. Like Joel just says it. Like as media people, we enjoy that because you're gonna get, no unfiltered Joel Embiid, and you had unfiltered Marcus Smart as well because Marcus Smart saying that Joel was getting every call, and then basically Joel flipping it on him and saying like, without calling him a flopper, and saying, "Hey Marcus, like you know how to do this too."
Yeah, that's a living in a glass house situation there.
100%.
And I'm high in the upper echelon on the Marcus Smart fan club, executive committee. But you got to be careful. you can't go around. You just can't be the guy going around complaining about referees falling for stuff.
Exactly. So do you give Philly a legitimate chance at breaking through and getting, maybe getting to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals?
Let's face it. If we're going to still think that Milwaukee is, no, God, whatever happened to Toronto? Well, my God, is that a fall from grace?
Yeah, they're. What are they? I mean, they're really, really, really struggling. Probably been as disappointed. They're 5-9.
I mean, last year we were saluting them for shocking us for playing so well without Leonard, and this year they're doing what we thought they were going to do last year, I guess. So far. And once again, something's amiss. We know that. Maybe
I'm not sure it's a miss as much as honestly, I feel like they overachieved a year ago.
Well, maybe so. Van Vliet had taken such a step up, and but anyway, so somebody's got to play. Let's say it's Milwaukee. Somebody's got to play them. And we think Boston has a shot, but certainly Philly has a shot. Absolutely. So I'm impressed, and of course I'm. Sentimentally, I wouldn't have a problem with it because I love Doc, and it looks like it was a good idea for Doc to leave, and the old that you need to move on after a certain amount of years thing. So and he's got a fresh start here, and I think it's going very well.
As we said, the one thing with Doc is he's good with people, and that's kind of what that Philly team needed, and obviously they made some moves to help the spacing on the floor, but like off the floor was probably as big of a problem as anything in Philly, and trying to get Embiid and Ben Simmons on the same page, and not moving either one of them. The big conversation has been for a year, like, well, do you trade Embiid? Do you trade Simmons?
Yep.
Like, I think you see if it can work, and there's no reason it shouldn't be able to work with those two of them, because Embiid, like you said, is skilled. He could score in, he could score out. He can do whatever you need him to do at his size on the court. It's figuring out Ben Simmons is the bigger key and how you utilize him. And if he's on the court, you need to find 4 guys around him that can shoot the basketball. And they've done that now. And they've got obviously guys that can space the court with Seth Curry. Bob, I know you said you've only seen snippets of LaMelo Ball so far.
Yeah, I mean.
So far, listen. He's probably been better than I thought he'd be coming out of the gates. And Charlotte has been better. They've been competitive for the most part. But LaMelo Ball's numbers, 11.8 points a game, 6.8 rebounds, 6.1 assists, all very good. 40% from the field.
Yeah.
33 from three, which is right about where I thought. The biggest thing for me is like a 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio, almost two assists, 2 turnovers a game, 6 assists a game.
Yeah, as a rookie, as a rookie, that's impressive. And he's got the ball so much. No, I'm.
He's fun to watch, Bob. The bottom line is this kid is fun. If you watch him, he just sees things, as I've told you for years.
Yes,
he sees things that other guys don't see, and he's able to get them the ball in the right places. Like if you just watch him, I mean, he really is fun, and he's 6'7". That's the advantage he has over Lonzo is he can see over, and everything's a no look pass. Like everything is flashy, everything. Where Lonzo, it's more basic and simple. But if LaMelo, and the other part that I'm impressed with is LaMelo he has not been a train wreck on the defensive end. He's not great, but he's at least exerting effort.
Nice.
He's making mistakes. He's losing his man at time, especially playing off the ball defense. He loses his man. But for the most part, his effort has been there when I've watched, and I give him credit, and I give, honestly, Charlotte credit for that, for getting him to buy in. And seemingly, I haven't talked to a lot of his teammates off the record, but I've talked to one or two of them, and they like him. They like him. And I think, again, the biggest key for him is, can he get that shot to where it's consistent? He's not making 33%, but he's making 40% from three. If he can, this could be a kid who's an all-star down the road.
Meanwhile, the other big story there is what Hayward's doing.
Yeah.
Including a 44-point game career high, and he's getting his wish. He's getting the being with the man more, and he's doing
what he wanted. The problem is, Bob, is anybody paying attention?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
You're 6-8. You could have been on the Celtics on a team that's relevant. Now, again, could have been. You're not making $30 million for the Celtics. So he took the money, and he took a increased role, which you could tell. He never said it, and that's the great thing about Gordon. Like, he never complained once here. But I think he was frustrated, obviously, that Tatum and Jaylen Brown were elevated, and he had become just kind of a forgotten man for the most part.
Yeah, right. There was no way you would know that. You'd have to be around and to even have any hint of anything, because certainly he never had any public expiration.
Right. No, that's not him. He's averaging 22 a game. 22 a game, shooting 41 from three, 93 from the line.
No.
The only thing he doesn't do, and he's still averaging almost 4 assists. So he's got the ball in his hands to make plays. I'm happy for him. Gordon Hayward, always a great guy since Butler days, quiet, to himself, just kind of the consummate professional. It's just, I always play the what if game when I think of Gordon Hayward, and what if he hadn't gotten hurt here in Boston.
Oh, jeez.
What that team now, because now you see what Tatum and Jaylen Brown are, right? Like, nobody knew then what they were. And now you see and if they had been able to grow with a healthy Gordon Hayward and Kyrie locked in, they could have won this thing. I mean,
in a sense, it happened twice, because not only did he get hurt in the first 5 minutes of his very first game with them, but last year they were playing great.
Yes.
And hit the playoffs playing really well. And with 3 minutes to go in the first game, he goes down again. Right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
And, and that was it. And they didn't have him, and until and it all was working well. He was facilitating. The mesh was really good. But anyway, I wish him. You got to wish him well. We all wish him well. And he certainly is showing the world I'm a pretty damn good basketball player.
I want to hit on one college topic.
Yeah.
While I got you. The Kentucky Wildcats are now 4-9, Robert. 4-9 under John Calipari. His prize recruits have been terrible this year. Now, again, they're young. They didn't have a full summer like they normally do to kind of build chemistry, but they're just not good enough right now. I mean, they're Devin Askew. They had a reclassified point guard who's been just okay. They're two big recruits. were Brandon Boston, who was terrible until last night. He played well in a loss to a Georgia team that stinks. I mean, they're towards the bottom. There's no Vern Fleming on this Georgia team, Bob. Ultimately, this is a team that is probably not going to get much better this year. Terrence Clark, the kid from Boston, has been hurt, and even when he was in the lineup, he was ineffective. They're not going to make the postseason of any kind. This is the worst season in like forever in Kentucky basketball, and they have expectations, Bob, of going to Final Fours, winning national titles. They haven't been to a Final Four here since 2015. They went, I think, four times in the first 5 years under Cal. Now, personally, the other part of this is there's a lot of people that want Cal gone now. There's some Kentucky fans that are saying it's time. He's more concerned with putting guys in the NBA than he is on winning games. And then you had the incident recently where he kneeled with his players. And you don't do that in the state of Kentucky. That's probably not the smart business or political decision to make if you're John Calipari. Where do you stand on this whole Calipari and his future in Lexington, Kentucky, Bob?
I'm fascinated from afar, having watched and studied John since he came to UMass. And I'm curious to see how he's reacting to all this. I'm well aware that there's dissatisfaction, and when it's all said and done, they won once in 2012. And that was that. And they, coulda, shoulda, but the undefeated year that wasn't in the end. Anyway, this incident that you alluded to, which resulted even in the storekeeper burning or somebody burning the jerseys and, the whole thing. Yeah, I know that's a whole other topic, but more important is the fact that they're not getting it done. And that to the degree that people expect, and he's changed the nature of what it means to root for a Kentucky team. In that, you used to, I go back way back, because speaking of which, by the way, I remember a Kentucky team losing to Cornell with Walter Isdale circa 1964 when they were a 500 team. That's how far back you got to go where they weren't very relevant. But the idea was that you had these players that you grew up rooting for, and and they grew up in your eyes. And I go back to the Issel Pratt Casey team. They all went through 4 years, and that's the way the world was. Well, that's the way the world everywhere. But the point is, he has made, and you're right. Remember what year was it? Early on, when he said he was the happiest night of his life was when he had the
kids get drafted. Yeah.
Oh, rather than I jumped. I glanced at that one. I said, "What are you?"
Yeah, you can't say that. You can't say it.
You got to put championships as a priority, and the NBA development as the silver medalist, not the gold winner in your resume. That's the silver. And it's maybe time for him to. I
don't think it is. I don't. I disagree with that. I don't. I think it's be careful what you wish for. Well, just who you getting? Who you getting, Bob? Like I said, Billy Donovan isn't coming. He's turned it down multiple times. Jay Wright's not leaving Villanova to go to Kentucky. Mark Few, Tony Bennett, none of those guys are leaving. They don't want to go to Kentucky anyway. And now you got to follow Calipari. You don't want that, right? For Cal, I think the whole thing became like a drug for him with the players going to the NBA, right? He sensed that it didn't matter. If I go to the Final Four, I don't have to win a national title. They adore me because we're relevant again. And, man, I could get all these guys and send them to the NBA, and then I'm going to keep getting more and more because that's my differentiator from Coach K. Is I'm going to beat him for the top players. Mm-hmm. And they love me here. Well, that allure has worn off a little bit, right? Like now it's, hey, what have you done for me lately? You haven't got us to a Final Four in a while. And we're sick and tired of these kids leaving after 1 year and underachieving to some degree. I understand all that. The other part of this is Cal has not worked nearly as hard on the recruiting trail in the last year or two. He has not. From my sources, he has not. Now, again, this past year, a little different with the Zoom deal, recruiting through Zoom. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the year or two before this.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, instead of getting the John Walls, the Anthony Davises, the elite players, he's getting the next tier. And there's a big difference. Like Cade Cunningham went to Oklahoma State. Now, he went to Oklahoma State. His brother is on staff there.
Yeah.
Okay. You weren't beating, I don't care who you were, you weren't beating him because his brother was on staff there. But what I'm trying to say is, normally, if you got Cade Cunningham on this team, instead of being 4-9, they're 9-4. He's that much of a difference maker. And he used to get those guys, those elite top 3, top 5 guys. Instead, he's getting the next tier. And Brandon Boston and Terrence Clark in the next tier are mediocre. They're mediocre. Like you just picked the wrong ones, or maybe you misevaluated, where it's hard to misevaluate on an elite guy. Like Cade Cunningham, we all knew how good he is. Jalen Suggs, the kid at Gonzaga, if they had him right now, again, they'd probably be 9-4 instead of 4-9. But you got Devin Askew, who is a 4-year point guard, who reclassified, who it's going to take time for him to get, and he doesn't have enough around him. If he had 4 pros around him, Devin Askew would probably be okay, but he doesn't. So ultimately, I still believe Calipari will get a little bit of a jolt here, a little bit of a wake-up call. This will invigorate him, like it did Rick Barnes when Rick Barnes went from Texas, got fired at Texas, and he went to Tennessee. And he really wasn't recruiting that hard at the end of Texas, and then he started getting after it again at Tennessee. I think the same thing will happen here with Cal with this season, and he'll start to become a little bit more involved. And if they do this again next year or anything close to it, if they don't make the tournament again next year, yeah, like he'll go. Like the question will be, Bob, if somebody comes calling, knocking on his door after this season, does he say the hell with it? I'm out. 12 years in Lexington, that's like 100 years, at any other job. Do I just go at this point? Because, I'm not dealing with this bullshit anymore.
Well, I'm trying to think of, obviously, that lateral moves are only,
Yeah, Kansas would be the only one that I would think if something happened, and it won't happen. Here's the problem. If something happens with Bill Self at Kansas because of the NCAA stuff, if something happens, it would have to be like a 2-year postseason ban for them to fire Bill Self. And Calipari's not going anywhere not to be in the tournament for 2 years. So I don't think he goes anywhere else in college. I think it would be the NBA. And if the Knicks had opened up this year with Worldwide West and Leon Rose running stuff, like I think if it had happened after this season, maybe Cal would have went to the Knicks and really wanted that job. I don't know what – he can't get good jobs in the NBA. Let's be honest. He can't get a good job.
No. The idea that it's come to fall into this, though, is still shocking to me, that they are –
this bad.
They're
this bad. They're terrible. And by the way, Duke might not be a tournament team, Bob. They're 5-4.
Well, there was – I know you know this, but I saw something that was astonishing, that this is the first time that Duke, Kentucky, and Carolina, none of them are in the top 25 since 1961. 60 years.
It's amazing, right? It's amazing.
How about that? And, of course, in the old days, it was the top 20. I don't know when the AP
top I didn't know that. It was top 20?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Morphed into the top 25 sometime in the last 25 or 30 years. It was top 20. When I grew up, it was the top 20. And so I don't know if they would have, but the fact is that in the ranking, that it's the first time in 60 years.
It's amazing to me that this is really the second straight year that we're talking about 3 of the elite teams are Gonzaga, Baylor, and Villanova.
Yeah.
They've been great last year. They're great again this year. They may not fall off next year. I wonder if this is something of times to come here. Like, are we going to have a little bit of a change and not have those elite programs be as elite? Now, the big thing that may change everything is this one-time transfer rule that's going to go in for next year, Bob, which basically means anybody can transfer anywhere and play right away. Not the same season, but But if you transfer, you don't have to sit out for the full year that you usually do. So, I heard the other day, so a top mid-major coach told me that a high major coach reached out to their best player through their brother and basically like complete tampering.
Yeah.
But that's what's it's gonna get worse and worse with the tampering. And like the Kentuckys, the Dukes, maybe they might just go down the list and say, like, if I'm Kentucky, just say, hey, who's the best 6'5" mid-major pure shooter in the country? Let's go get him. Let's go get him, whoever it is.
Yeah, well, the whole transfer thing is
not good for the game.
Something I've been raging about, and it combined with the the 5th year thing, the graduate rule that has become so prevalent.
Players' rights, though, Bob. Players' rights. That's what they can't fight it if you're the NCAA.
I just got one little random observation. Nothing that we've been talking about. Have watched some games lately, and oh boy, is the Big Ten! It really is loaded. And are some fun teams. I mean, every Iowa game to me is appointment TV. I fell in love with an instant with Minnesota last week when I saw them.
Yeah, you see the kid Liam Robbins, the big kid.
Liam Robbins against Michigan, and I know how loaded that it really is a loaded league. And I'm looking forward to seeing Minnesota play again. And I definitely always like to watch Iowa, and not just because of Garza. But
bigger shooters.
Garza, I to me, it's like reliving my childhood watching a guy from the 50s and 60s, do it in the low post. And then he turns around, hits 4 straight outside threes, and
kid works, man. He works so hard on his game, Bob. Now again, he looks, watching him run hurts me sometimes. He labors to run, but he runs so hard, and he knows his drawbacks. He knows what he needs to do to get better. Like, I love Luka. I love him. Robbie Hummel compared him last week. I thought it was actually a pretty good comparison to Brad Miller.
Brad Miller.
Not a bad one.
Let me just say a quick Brad Miller. In 1998, I covered that World Basketball Championships when we couldn't send the pros, the NBA because of the strike, and Rudy Tomjanovich was giving his team of CBAs and college guys, and Brad Miller was on that team, and because I go into it knowing nothing about Brad Miller other than there was this kid who from Purdue, and his thing at that point was every game things. So you have people, some guys things just happen. They come in the game and things just happen around them. And it can't be an accident when you see it time and again. And, one night, okay, fine. He was and I mean good things. Good things happened as soon as Brad Miller came into these games. And I'm just, that's it. I mean, he went up and having the career that he had. It wasn't a great career, but I'll always remember that. Was
that like good things always happen when Rick Roby came in the game?
Well, Roby, I love Rick Roby, but what Larry was said, he wouldn't have been MVP if they hadn't traded Rick Roby. He was his roommate. And Roby, they laugh over that to this day. Rick laughs over that to this day. But anyway, Rick Roby was a forgotten, interesting player, boy.
He was interesting. He was, no doubt. Hey, I always remember, I don't know if I ever told you this story, when I was a kid, go down, try to get there before the games, get there early. I don't know if I'm sure you saw these or heard them all the time, but I remember being fascinated, watching Larry and Michael Smith gambling on shooting contests prior to the game. And you'd hear him, and it happens all the time now. You see players doing it now. They're like, all right, $200 if I make this shot. This was like a focused shooting contest where and Michael Smith needed the money probably too, coming out of BYU. Do you remember, like, were those?
Not really, but I'll take your word for it. I don't know. I don't remember that, but I remember things about Michael Smith. Such as the fact that he was a linguist and they had Dino Raja, and he could speak Serbo-Croatian or wherever the hell Dino was speaking. But I made a prediction about Michael Smith because he was a very controversial draft pick at the time. And I said that there's no in between. He's either going to be a great pick or he's going down in flames. And it was the latter.
It went down in flames. Michael Smith couldn't get much done. He couldn't. I don't know what was he picked, about 15, 16?
Yeah, mid round, mid first. Right? I think so. Yeah.
It did not pan out. Did not pan out at all. All right. Well, listen, we'll have more of a body of work next week to talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
They're like they are a lab experiment that we're going to be watching them every night. Come on, who isn't going to be doing that? To see where it's going. But the first sample. The first things out of the jar were, it's just fascinating. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out.
All right. Make sure you come back next week. Ryan and Goodman podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.